Hello everybody and welcome. This is New Music Friday. It is November 26, 2021. I'm Nathan on Shuffle, and this is the show where I bring you guys the top 5 biggest prog headlines for the week and talk through some of that, and then do kind of an update on the channel and what happened this past week and what you can expect that's coming up, and just a way to kind of talk about some of the big events that are going on in this world of prog and music in general, and hopefully you guys enjoy the show today. So this is Thanksgiving weekend here in America, so I was kind of debating if I would have time to come on and do this show, but there was a lot of big news items that I felt like were worthy of covering, so I decided to jump on and do a video anyways, even though I kind of had already planned to skip the weekend. But I think it's going to be fun, so it might be a little bit of a quicker show. I always say that, and then they end up running long anyways, just because of my nature. But that's what I'm going to attempt to do today, kind of a quick New Music Friday to just hit some of these big headline news stories, and then hopefully lead you guys through to the next week. So the first item I only want to touch on briefly because I plan to do this in its own separate video, because I feel like it deserves its own tribute video of sorts that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I want to give it the respect it deserves. But to me, the number one item in prog news is unfortunately the passing of David Longdon of Big Big Train, frontman, multi-instrumentalist, huge key member of one of my all-time favorite bands, and it's a pretty devastating bit of news that came about this past weekend. Last Friday, there was some kind of accident on Friday morning, and he passed at a really young age, at 56. Survived by 2 daughters, Amelia and Eloise, and his mother Vera, and his partner Sarah Ewing. And it was such a shock to hear about, and has been difficult to process, to be honest, because of just how important Big Big Train is for me musically. This is probably one of the biggest, most impactful passings that I've experienced for a band that I'm really close to. So it's been a difficult one, but it's been really heartwarming to see the outpouring of love and people's comments and thoughts about it, and seeing some fellow musicians and seeing a lot of different prog themed websites and videos and things paying tribute to him. I point your attention to those, to seek those out, because there's a lot of great stuff that is out there, talking about David Longdon and his impact and the things that he did in his lifetime. He's such a great person that everyone loved, and so it's a really tragic thing to talk about. So I plan to do a separate video. I kind of want to make it part of a Jana Reacts sort of video, but to have a very respectful, more somber tone with it, and to share some of his music, a song he wrote. And I think that would be a great way to kind of pass on his legacy in a way, because I think that's what's important in this moment, is to celebrate his music and to pass it on, and to share it with people so that they can experience the great joy that he had in life and that he shared through his music. So that's kind of the plan. So I didn't want to go too far into it, and I knew the mood of this news probably wouldn't fit the tone of some of the other items I have. So but I did want to mention it. So expect this weekend some kind of tribute video that I plan to put out there. But there's been some great ones out there. The Daily Doug did a great reaction. I know we have a lot of shared fans. He did a reaction to a couple Big Big Train songs and did a bit of a tribute to David Longdon. I saw the Prog Report did a podcast talking about David Longdon and his impact. There's just been several articles written, and a lot of people posting on the Big Big Train fan group on Facebook that have been really heartwarming comments. Just so much outpouring of love and of shared grief over this news. So just wanted to put that out there, as that to me is by far and away the biggest news of the week, and greatly surpasses all the rest that I'm going to be talking about in its gravity and seriousness of the situation. So wanted to get that wanted to mention that out of the way because I knew I debated mentioning it here in the show, but I knew people would be wondering, if it was missing, why didn't you cover this? This is such an important news item. So that's the big headline number one. So moving on to headline number two for this week. Exciting for me because I really, this is one of my favorite bands, so it's really exciting news. The Flower Kings are announcing their 15th studio album by royal decree. So this is something I've been hearing kind of rumored for a bit, that they've been working on a new album and that there's been like some activity in the studio this year, but it looks like there's an official announcement that their new album is coming out March 4th next year, so a few months away. It sounds like we can expect some more information December 10th, it sounds like, if I remember right, where they're going to be releasing like the first single from it and probably doing the pre-order campaign and all that kind of stuff. But it sounds like this is going to be a really special album by the band. It says in the press release that the band are back at their most creative, flowery, and playful, mirroring the 70s melting pot of folk, symphonic, electronic, jazz, blues, funk, and prog. On the new album, they have looked for more organic and vintage sounds, still centered around the foundation of drums, bass, guitars, and the iconic Hammond grand piano Mellotron and Moog synthesizers. So definitely sounds right up my lane. Some classic sounding music from the Flower Kings. They do so well to me of really calling back to the big giants of the 70s progressive scene, but doing so in their own unique way, melting pot of all these different influences, melding them in a creative fashion and bringing their own modern stamp to it. And so if this harkens back to some of their classic albums like Stardust We Are and Flower Power and those like kind of seminal 90s prog albums that really were important to me coming into the genre here, I'm more than happy. And it seems like, interestingly as well, that this album features a return for Michael Stolt on bass, taking up his duties on bass. He was the bass player for some of those early classic albums. I've heard, Jonas Reingold is a big figure of the band as well, and it sounds like they're sharing the bass duties on this album. So it's not like Jonas Reingold is gone from the band. I think he's still part of it, but they're sharing bass duties this time, and I believe Michael Stolt is going to be playing bass on their upcoming tour because Jonas Reingold just has other commitments and stuff. So I think that's partially the reason why he's kind of being brought on board here. But we have in the lineup Mirko Demau on drums, Zach Cummins on keyboard, Ossie Froberg on vocal and guitar, and of course Ryan Stoll on vocal and guitar. So sounds like pretty close to the same lineup that was on their previous two albums, Waiting for Miracles and Islands. This is kind of a new iteration of the band in a sense, and Islands was fantastic, and it's even growing on me more through time. So if it's like Islands, I'm going to be really happy with it, and it's definitely going to be something featured heavily on the channel. So I'm really excited, and it sounds like kind of as part of this announcement that they're going to be remastering several of their classic albums on CD and vinyl later in the next year. So that's an exciting piece of this too. I've been really wanting all of the Flower Kings albums on vinyl. I have a couple. I have Unfold the Future and of course their newer ones, Waiting for Miracles and Islands, since they were released in vinyl, but I don't have a lot of their classics that either haven't been released on vinyl or I just haven't picked up because they're not really in print anymore. So it looks like there's going to be some live dates in coordination. It sounds like there's still some, they haven't really announced a full tour or anything, but there's a couple dates in Sweden that they've announced from March 30th, 31st, and April 1st for next year. So definitely a lot of activity in the Flower Kings camp. Another little kind of sidebar news. Today was the release of Ossie Froberg and the Musical Companions album, We Are the Truth, which I've been listening to a bit this morning and have been really enjoying it. So just want to turn your attention to that. I probably will do a small review of it upcoming. So it's just an album that I want to bring your attention to because it's related to the Flower Kings. Of course, Ossie Froberg is a main member of the Flower Kings, and it's a really cool project from him. Their albums always, they have a lot of that Flower King sound, but sometimes I feel like they blend it with other styles and more maybe straightforward rock here and there, and just really have an interesting sound that I think fans of Flower Kings should really enjoy. So that's one I want to point your attention to. The third prog headline today that I wanted to mention is related to Haken, and their keyboardist Diego Tejeida is leaving the group. There was a statement on Facebook Monday that Haken and Diego Tejeida are parting ways. They're not going to continue together. There was a little bit of a comment about it. There wasn't much. They didn't delve too deep into the reason why this is. Just kind of like, we wish each other well as we continue down our different paths. Just kind of maybe musical creative differences is kind of seems to be the reason for it. But kind of, a bit of a sad piece of news, because I really loved what Diego brought to the group. He's been an incredible keyboardist for the band, and just has brought in a really rich progressive sound to them that I think was an important piece of the puzzle of their music. So it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. I'm assuming there will be a replacement for him in the near future. They do have some tour dates upcoming, so they're probably going to have to bring in a sub for that pretty quickly, or a new member. I don't really know what's in the works for that. Hopefully they're kind of working on some new music as well. Should be interesting to see moving forward what occurs with this band, and if Diego moves forward and does some other solo stuff, or does a different band, and see what follows with his career. Sometimes, as much as it's sad to see kind of a core member leave a group, sometimes it does provide another path of new music, as it were. I was devastated when Neil Morse left Spock's Beard. That was just such a gutting moment, but it's produced two paths of great music. Spock's Beard has continued to create great albums, and Neil Morse solo has done so many great things in his solo career and with the Neil Morse band. So, sometimes there's a little bit of a good effect, coming out of tragedy, in a way that, even though it's sad for them to part ways, maybe they'll both create some great music to enjoy in the future. So, I'm hopeful, and we'll see what goes on. So, just thought I'd mention that. And of course, Haken is doing a co-headlining tour with Symphony X next year, throughout May and June in North America. So should be some activity there from Haken. I don't know if there's going to be a new album around that time. They released Vector a couple years ago, right? And I believe, in fact, maybe it was last year, 2020. But it was a great album, and it'll be interesting to see where they move forward. So we'll see. So item number 4 is probably a little bit of a catch-up item that I probably, this news came out last Friday, kind of around the time I released my New Music Friday video, so didn't quite catch it in time for that. But there was kind of some news from Marillion, and I covered a lot about Marillion throughout these videos. They're a band, as I've talked about, that I have an interesting relationship, because it's a band I really want to love, but I've struggled to really get into them. Just their sound has not really connected with me as much as other bands have. But there's little pieces and little albums and snippets that I do really love. And I think it's a band that I could really grow to love if I just gave them a bit more care and attention, which I sort of plan to, especially with the release of this upcoming album an hour before it's dark. So they released some details about the new album and released a single to kind of give a first peek, a first look at what the album might sound like. And so the single is called Be Hard on Yourself, which is really a fantastic track. I really enjoy it. I've been listening to it. I think it bodes well for what the album could be. It really, it's their classic sound, but it's really beautiful, and it has some passionate vocals, and just really just sounds pristine, and really is a great sonic production. So I really, really like it. It's kind of interesting, the descriptions of the album, that it's like they kind of talk about it as an upbeat album, even though, it seems, at least from the single and other indications, that there's going to be some of that melancholy, bleak feel, especially with some of the themes that are being represented on the album. It says, in fact, in the press release from Steve Hogarth, I believe, mentioned this, that despite the seemingly bleak contemplations across this album, the virus, our mortality, medical science, care, and Leonard Cohen, the overall feeling of the music is surprisingly upbeat. I think the band are as on form as they ever were, really, and the addition of Choir Noir has added another new soul and color to things. So, kind of an interesting description, you know. There's some melancholy, darker themes and inspirations for the album, but apparently to them they consider it more of an upbeat album and are saying that the band is really on point and really plays well on it. So really should be a great album to be released March 4th next year, same day as the Flower Kings album. So two major prog heavyweights battling it out on March 4th next year with some incredible albums. This is their 20th studio album, so quite a storied career by them, you know, going through so many different styles and feels. You know, there's the early Fish era and then the Hogarth era moving towards now. Their predecessor, their last album before this one was 2016's Fear, or F Everyone and Run. So I would expect it to kind of fall in line with the feel of that album. And they're going on tour. Currently, I believe they've already done a couple dates even. I've seen a few like concert reviews and stuff pop up that have been very glowingly positive. Light at the End of the Tunnel is the name of the tour. Right now going on in the UK. And there's just a lot of activity going on. And of course, the album is available for pre-order as a CD plus DVD digipack, CD digipack, jewel box CD, Blu-ray, softbox, 2LP, gatefold, limited colored edition, 2LP in orange. Just a lot of different permutations and pre-orders. And so get excited. It's going to be good. Marillion's a great band with high quality. And I'm maybe using this as an opportunity to really delve deeper into their catalog. I'm considering doing some shows around the time delving into Marillion's catalog, but I don't want to promise anything yet because I'm debating about it. So that's kind of the direction I'm thinking of. So there you go, some great news about Marillion. And then finally, prog item number 5. I thought this was worth mentioning too. I know probably some of you could care less about the Grammy Awards. You know, it's mostly celebrating a lot of commercial music and, you know, pop music and things that are heard on the radio that aren't really so much in line with the spirit of progressive rock music or just rock music in general, really. But there's some notable Grammy nominations for some prog artists that I thought were worth mentioning. That just shows, you know, there's some measure of appreciation for this scene. Of course, there's certain artists that get overlooked, and there's certain bigger names that get all of the attention. And maybe, is it unfair? Are these really the bands that deserve? I don't know. But these are great groups that any great attention towards this genre and towards these bands to me is positive, so I wanted to mention it. So at this year's Grammys, there's been nominations for Steven Wilson and Dream Theater, two of the big names that really speak to me. Of course, Mastodon is also nominated, as well as prog metalers Gojira and late fusion maestro Chick Corea and Pat Metheny and the Sun Ra Orchestra are represented as well. So some, you know, prog-related, prog-themed musicians and bands, you know, they're all being mentioned here. For Steven Wilson, it looks like his nomination is for the future Bytes for the categories of Best Immersive Audio Album and Best Box Set or Limited Edition Package. So that's exciting. You know, I really love the future Bytes. I know a lot of people who are more into the prog side of things thought it was a bit more of a move into a pop direction more than they would have liked. You know, they appreciate him as a prog artist more so. But I really appreciate his artistry and the direction he chooses to go in. I think he's a really fantastic artist that I'm willing to follow into whatever he wants to do. And his albums always sonically just sound so amazing to me. I think his production level is off the charts. So it makes sense that he's being honored here for his album and not just the quality of it, but the package of it, you know, and all the promotion that he put into it and just all the bells and whistles, the deluxe editions. And, you know, he's so into all that. And so it makes sense to get those nominations. And so the other mentions are for the Best Metal Performance for Dream Theater, Mastodon, and Gojira. So The Alien by Dream Theater, which opens up their latest album, A View from the Top of the World, is nominated, which is really cool. Pushing the Tides from Mastodon, and Amazonia from Gojira. And then, of course, more of the jazz category nominations for those other artists I mentioned, with Pat Metheny and Chick Corea, who, you know, are very well established and very well liked by those in the progressive community. So just, I wanted to mention that the 64th Grammy Awards will take place next year, January 31st. So if you're at all interested, at least to find out who won these awards, or, you know, what happened with it, you know, please check it out then. But I just thought it was cool, you know, just to get some recognition for this little genre that we all love. So just wanted to mention that as the last news item here. So that's really it today for the news. Hopefully you enjoyed some of those items. I'm putting in the description a list of the weekly top 5 of some notable prog tracks to check out, including a live version of Hedgerow by Big Big Train, to try to honor a little bit of David Longdon, his contributions. So please check out that video. Like I mentioned, we're going to do a tribute video of sorts for David Longdon, and featuring a reaction with Jana. And so I'm not quite sure yet if that's going to be in place of Jana Reacts this week or in addition to. I'm still deciding that, but that's coming this weekend. We're going to definitely film and release something about that for sure. And beyond that, there's a lot of things I'm planning for the next month, basically all revolving around year-end stuff, you know, the best albums of the year, the best tracks of the year, some honorable mentions. And I'm planning this new music shuffle kind of mega show of like a big catch-all of all the different albums that have been released throughout the year that I haven't really covered for various reasons. Either I just ran out of time, or I just didn't feel like I had enough to say to fill out a whole review. But I thought they were worth mentioning as albums to go check out if you're interested in some new prog music. I think it's going to be a fun show. I'm going to do these quick, like 1-minute reviews, I think, of each album that I have on my list, because it's a really lengthy list, just to kind of give a synopsis and an impression of what it is, and if it may be something that interests you. So hopefully that's fun. I'm planning on it being a pretty fun, fast-paced style show. So just a lot of fun end-of-year content coming up that I think should be enjoyable. Also, I'm planning to film this weekend my Dream Theater album rankings, and hopefully I can get that finished in time to release next week. So that's been one I've really been excited about. This past week, if you want to check out some of the videos this week, they weren't viewed quite so much as some of my other videos, which makes sense. I understand that. Also, maybe because it's Thanksgiving week and people may be out of town or traveling, at least here in the U.S. But I did a review of the new Ross Jennings album, A Shadow of My Future Self, which I really love and highly recommend. I think it's an awesome singer-songwriter style album with a lot of different influences. It's not very progressive, but it's a great breath of fresh air for me compared to a lot of these heavier prog albums that I've been listening to lately. So I think it was a really great release that deserves a lot more of attention. And so please check out the review if you're at all curious about that one. And then we did a classic albums show, me and Jana, of Rolling Stone's Sticky Fingers, which was a lot of fun to do. We love these classic album shows. They're probably one of our less popular things, but just personally, we're just really loving delving into these classic albums. Jana's having a lot of fun with it. It's introducing her to some great music that she hadn't heard before, and it's just a great way to talk about some classic music. So please check that one out too if you are interested in our discussion and what we had to say about that. Our next classic albums will be Ziggy Stardust from David Bowie, so that should be coming out in probably a couple weeks. And then we're going to take a little bit of a break from classic albums after that one, just as we do all this year-end stuff, and there's a lot of stuff we're doing around the holidays and around Jana's birthday and so forth, so there might be a little bit of a hiatus for that show until we get back into it in the new year. So just kind of giving you an idea of what to expect moving forward. I'm really excited for all that's coming up, and there's a lot of great albums being announced and coming out, so hopefully you guys will join me as I explore those albums and review them, and as I continue on my journey with Jana through our reactions and classic album shows. It's been a lot of fun to do this, and I hope you guys are having fun along with us, because that's all I really want to do here, is to have fun, enjoy great music, hopefully introduce you guys to some great music, and you guys can introduce me to some great new music, and we can all just celebrate in the great music that's been created. So thank you guys so much, and please subscribe if you haven't yet. I'd appreciate that. I do these New Music Fridays weekly and have a lot of fun delivering the news and talking through some of these items, so hopefully you guys have been enjoying that. And with that, I will close. So thank you guys, and hope you have a great week, and I'll catch you guys in another video. Bye.